The stars outside the window looked cold and distant. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of her ship, the UES Perseverance, and watched them in silence. She had loved space since she was a child, but tonight the universe felt darker than usual. A message floated in the air before her. It was a hologram, glowing blue and white. The seal of the Galactic Council turned slowly at the top. Sarah had read the message 5 times already. Each time, her jaw tightened a little more. The Galactic Council was an assembly of 12 ancient alien species. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years before humans ever left Earth. They made the laws. They decided disputes, and they had just made a decision about humanity that made Sarah's blood run cold. 3 weeks ago, the Vorax Dominion had attacked the human colony on Kepler 442b. The Vorax were massive creatures, with hard shells and powerful claws. They had conquered 60 worlds and feared nothing. They had landed on the peaceful colony without warning. They had killed the defense forces, and they had taken 3,000 human civilians as prisoners. Mothers, fathers, children, scientists, farmers, teachers. All of them now sat in Vorax prison camps, waiting to learn their fate. Humanity had demanded justice from the Galactic Council. Surely, they thought, the ancient laws would protect them. Surely the Council would order the Vorax to release the prisoners. They were wrong. The Council had ruled that the Vorax claim was legitimate. They said the planet was in disputed territory. They called it an internal matter. They told humanity to negotiate with the Vorax directly and accept whatever terms they offered. In simple words, they told humans to beg. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about her younger brother, who lived on that colony. She thought about his wife and their 2 small children. Were they scared? Were they hurt? Were they even still alive? The communication panel beeped. Sarah opened her eyes and touched the screen. The face of Admiral Marcus Webb appeared before her. He was an older man, with silver hair and deep lines around his eyes. He had served humanity for 40 years. He had fought in 3 wars and negotiated a dozen peace treaties. Nothing surprised him anymore. But tonight, even he looked troubled. "Captain Chen," he said, "I assume you received the Council's summons." "Yes, Admiral. They want us to appear before them tomorrow. They want us to formally accept their ruling." Webb nodded slowly. "They think we have no choice. They think we are young and weak. They believe we will bow our heads and accept whatever scraps they throw at us." Sarah's hands formed fists at her sides. "And what are our actual orders, sir?" The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was calm. Too calm. It was the kind of calm that came before a storm. "We will attend their summit. We will dress in our finest uniforms. We will smile. We will be polite. We will listen to every word they say." And then, Webb's eyes met hers through the hologram. There was something ancient in that gaze, something that went back thousands of years, to a time when humans chased their prey across endless plains. Never stopping, never tiring, until the prey finally collapsed from exhaustion. "And then," he said softly, "we will remind the galaxy what humans do when someone takes our people." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Not from fear, from recognition. She had studied Earth's history. Every officer in the fleet was required to study it. She knew what her ancestors had done when their families were taken. They did not scream. They did not make wild threats. They did not rush into battle without thinking. They planned. They prepared. And then they hunted. There was a famous case from centuries ago. A group of criminals had kidnapped a child and fled to another country. Everyone said it was hopeless. The criminals had new identities. They had powerful friends. They thought they were safe. The family searched for 40 years. 40 years. The parents died, but their other children continued the search. And their children after them. They never gave up. They never stopped looking. They found the kidnappers living as old men in a small village. They had forgotten their crime. They had built new lives. They thought the past was dead and buried. They were wrong. That was humanity's gift. Not strength, not speed, not claws or fangs or venom. Patience, persistence, the absolute refusal to ever stop. Other predators chased their prey and gave up when they lost sight of them. Humans just kept walking, hour after hour, day after day. The prey would run and rest, but every time they stopped, they would see the humans still coming, walking slowly, never hurrying, never stopping. Eventually, the prey would collapse from exhaustion and fear. The humans would arrive and finish the hunt. Sarah straightened her back. "When do we leave, Admiral?" 6 hours. "Get some rest, Captain. Tomorrow will be a long day." The hologram faded. Sarah stood alone on the bridge again. She thought about the council chamber she would enter tomorrow. 12 alien species would look down at her and the Admiral. They would see 2 small humans in a room full of giants. They would see a young species barely a few centuries old in space, standing before empires that had lasted for millennia. They would see weakness. They would be wrong. Sarah walked to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3,000 humans waited in prison cells. They were scared and alone. They probably thought no one was coming for them. They were wrong too. "We're coming," Sarah whispered to the darkness. "It might take time. It might take years. But we're coming for you. Every single one of you. And nothing in this galaxy will stop us." She turned away from the window and went to prepare her uniform. Tomorrow, she would stand before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. She would smile politely. She would speak softly. And she would begin the hunt. The Galactic Council did not know it yet, but they had made a terrible mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen a young, weak species that could be pushed around. They had not seen the truth. Humans were not the loudest species in the galaxy. They were not the strongest or the fastest. But they had something far more dangerous than strength. They had patience that never ended. They had memory that never forgot. And they had a simple rule that every human child learned before they could walk. You do not take what belongs to us. You do not hurt our people. And if you do, we will come for you. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday. And when that day comes, you will wish you had never been born. Admiral Webb understood this. Captain Sarah Chen understood this. Soon, the entire galaxy would understand it too. The hunt was about to begin. The council station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of crystal and light. It was called Thessar Prime, and it was the most important place in the galaxy. Here, the 12 elder species met to decide the fate of worlds. Here, wars were started and ended with a single vote. Here, young species came to beg for scraps from their masters. Captain Sarah Chen looked at it through the shuttle window. It was beautiful. It was also a place where her people had just been betrayed. Admiral Webb sat beside her. He wore his dress uniform, decorated with medals from a lifetime of service. His face was calm and unreadable. If he felt any anger or fear, he did not show it. "Remember," he said quietly, "we are here to listen. We are here to be polite. Nothing more." Sarah nodded. She understood. The time for action would come later. Today was about watching and learning. The shuttle docked, and they stepped onto the station. Alien guards surrounded them immediately. They were Kurthari, insect-like creatures with 6 arms and hard black shells. They clicked their mandibles and looked at the 2 humans with obvious contempt. "Follow," one of them ordered. They walked through halls of crystal that glowed with inner light. Strange plants grew in floating gardens. Alien species of every shape and size moved around them, most ignoring the small human visitors completely. Sarah kept her head high and her expression neutral. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her intimidated. The council chamber was enormous. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into darkness. 12 massive seats surrounded a central platform, each one designed for a different species. The seats rose in a half-circle, forcing anyone on the platform to look up at the council members like a child looking up at adults. That was the point, of course. To make visitors feel small and powerless, Sarah and Admiral Webb walked to the center of the platform and stopped. They stood straight and tall, their hands clasped behind their backs. The 12 council members looked down at them. Sarah had studied each species, but seeing them in person was different. The Kurthari representative was the largest insect she had ever seen, with compound eyes that reflected light like black mirrors. The Alluvians were beings made of gas, their forms shifting and changing inside special containment fields. The monoliths were ancient silicon creatures, living rocks that had existed since before Earth's sun was born. And at the center, in the highest seat, sat High Arbiter Zelros. Zelros was a serpentine creature, long and elegant, with scales that glowed with soft blue light. He was considered the wisest being in the galaxy. His species had been making laws when humans were still living in caves. He looked at the two humans with cold, golden eyes. "Humanity," he said. His voice echoed through the chamber like music. "You have come as summoned. This is good. We were not sure your species understood the importance of obedience." Sarah felt her jaw tighten, but she said nothing. "The matter of Kepler 442b has been decided," Zelros continued. "The Vorax Dominion's claim is legitimate under ancient territorial laws. The humans living on that world are now property of the Dominion. This ruling is final. Property." He had called 3,000 innocent people property. Sarah felt anger burning in her chest, but she kept her face still. Admiral Webb spoke. His voice was calm and respectful. "High Arbiter, we thank the Council for hearing us. We respectfully request that you reconsider this ruling." Laughter filled the chamber. Different species laughed in different ways. The Kurthari clicked. The Alluvians bubbled. A massive creature covered in fur let out a booming sound that shook the floor. They were all laughing at the foolish humans who dared to ask for reconsideration. Zelros raised one scaled hand, and the laughter stopped. "You request reconsideration?" he said slowly, as if speaking to a child. "On what grounds? Do you have a fleet that can match the Vorax? Do you have allies who will fight for you? Do you have wealth to offer as tribute? No, High Arbiter. Then you have nothing." Zelros leaned forward. "You are a young species, humanity. You have been in space for barely 300 years. We have watched you grow, and we have been patient with your mistakes. But now you must learn an important lesson." He paused, letting the silence grow heavy. "Sometimes, you lose. Sometimes, your people are taken, and you cannot get them back. This is the way of the universe. The strong take from the weak. The old rule over the young. Accept this truth, and you may survive. Fight against it, and you will be destroyed." Sarah wanted to speak. She wanted to tell this ancient creature that he did not understand humans at all, that they had never accepted loss, that they had crossed oceans and mountains and the void of space itself because they refused to be told what was impossible. But Webb spoke first. "We understand, High Arbiter. We thank you for your wisdom." Zelros waved his hand. "Ask. The Vorax Overseer is here on this station, yes? We would like to speak with him directly. To discuss. Options. 1. The council members exchanged looks. Some seemed amused. Others seemed bored. Only Zelros showed something different. For just a moment, something flickered in his golden eyes. It might have been curiosity. "You wish to negotiate with the Vorax?" "We wish to talk, High Arbiter. Nothing more." Zelros studied the two humans for a long moment. They stood so small on that platform, surrounded by giants. They had no power, No weapons, no fleet. They were completely at the mercy of forces far greater than themselves. And yet they did not look afraid. They did not look defeated. They stood straight and calm, with something in their eyes that Zelros had not expected to see. Patience. Very well, he said at last. Overseer Kreth has agreed to meet with you. But do not waste his time. The Vorax have little patience for weakness. We understand, Admiral Webb said. Thank you, High Arbiter. They turned and walked out of the chamber. Every alien eye followed them. Most saw two small, defeated creatures going to beg for their people's lives. They did not see the truth. Sarah walked beside the Admiral in silence until they were alone in an empty corridor. Then, she let out a long breath. They think we are beaten, she said. Yes. They think we will offer tribute, beg for mercy. Accept whatever terms the Vorax give us. Yes. Sarah looked at the Admiral. His face was still calm, but there was something new in his eyes. Something cold and sharp. What do we actually do? She asked. Webb smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had just spotted his prey. We talk to the Vorax. We give them one chance to do the right thing, and when they refuse, as we know they will, we begin something they have never experienced before. What is that? The Admiral looked at her with ancient eyes. The polite kind of hunting. The kind where we smile and wait and watch. The kind where they never see us coming, until it is far too late. Sarah nodded slowly. She understood. The Council thought the meeting was over. They thought humanity had been put in its place. They were wrong. The meeting had not ended. It had just begun. The meeting room was dark and cold. The Vorax liked it that way. Their species had evolved on a world of endless winter, and they found warmth uncomfortable. They had built their empire in the coldest parts of the galaxy, and they had learned to see other species as nothing more than resources to be used. Captain Sarah Chen felt the cold seeping through her uniform as she entered the room. Admiral Webb walked beside her, his breath making small clouds in the air. Neither of them complained. They had faced worse than cold. Overseer Kreth waited for them at a large metal table. He was the most terrifying creature Sarah had ever seen. The Vorax were massive beings, covered in hard shells like insects but built like tanks. Kreth was even larger than most of his kind. He stood nearly 3 meters tall, with 4 powerful arms ending in claws that could tear through steel. His head was a nightmare of mandibles and compound eyes, and when he breathed, it sounded like rocks grinding together. He looked at the two humans the way a person might look at ants. Sit, he commanded. Sarah and Webb sat in chairs designed for much larger beings. Their feet barely touched the floor. Another small humiliation, Sarah realized. Everything was designed to make them feel powerless. Kreth did not sit. He stood over them, casting a shadow that covered them both. I am told you wish to negotiate, he said. His voice was deep and rough. This amuses me. Your colony now belongs to the Vorax Dominion. Your people will serve us as workers and resources. This is already decided. What could you possibly have to negotiate with? Admiral Webb spoke calmly. Overseer, we come with respect and a desire for peace. We believe there has been a misunderstanding. Kreth made a sound that might have been laughter. Misunderstanding? There is no misunderstanding. Your species built a colony in space that we claimed. We took what was ours. This is simple. The people on that colony, Sarah said. They are innocent. Families. Children. They have done nothing wrong. Kreth turned his massive head toward her. His compound eyes reflected her image 1,000 times. Innocent? Wrong? These are weak words. The universe does not care about innocent or wrong. The universe cares only about power. We have power. You do not. Therefore, your people belong to us. He leaned closer, and Sarah could smell something like oil and metal on his breath. You should thank us, human. We could have killed them all. Instead, we let them live. They will serve the Dominion, and their children will serve after them. In time, they will forget they were ever free. This is mercy. Sarah felt rage building inside her. She wanted to stand up and scream at this monster. She wanted to tell him that humans would never forget, that they would never stop fighting, but she stayed still. She kept her voice level. We would like to propose an alternative arrangement. Kreeth straightened. There is no alternative. I grow tired of this. Admiral Webb reached into his pocket and placed a small data chip on the table. It was tiny, almost invisible, against the dark metal surface. Overseer, he said. Before you dismiss us, I wonder if your species has ever studied Earth's history. Specifically, how humans respond when our people are taken. Kreeth's mandibles clicked with impatience. Why would we study the history of a weak species? That is unfortunate. You might have learned something important. Webb pushed the chip forward. This contains records of every human conflict, where our people were held against their will. Every hunt, every pursuit. Some of them lasted decades. Decades? Kreeth sounded almost interested now. You hunted for decades? There is a famous case, Sarah said. A group of criminals took a child and fled far away. They changed their names. They built new lives. They thought they were safe after so many years. She paused. The family never stopped searching. Not for 40 years. When they finally found the criminals, the men had grown old. They had forgotten their crime. But the family remembered. Humans always remember. Kreeth was silent for a moment. Then he laughed again, louder this time. You think to frighten me with stories of chasing criminals? We are the Vorax Dominion. We have conquered 60 worlds. We have crushed species far greater than yours. We are not trying to frighten you, Webb said softly. We are trying to explain what we are. He stood up slowly. He was so much smaller than Kreeth, barely reaching the creature's chest. But something in his posture had changed. He no longer looked like a beaten diplomat. He looked like something else entirely. Humans are what our scientists call persistence predators. Do you know what that means? Kreeth said nothing. Most predators in the universe rely on speed or strength. They chase their prey. And if they do not catch it quickly, they give up. They rest. They try again. Another day. Webb smiled gently. Okay. 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 Humans are different. We do not give up. We do not rest. We simply keep following. Sarah stood beside him. Our ancestors hunted by walking. Just walking. Hour after hour. Day after day. The prey would run and rest. Run and rest. But every time it stopped to catch its breath, it would look back and see us still coming. Never hurrying. Never stopping. Eventually, Webb continued. The prey would collapse from exhaustion and fear. Not because we were faster. Not because we were stronger. Because we simply refused to stop. The room was very quiet now. Kreeth's compound eyes had stopped moving. We do not negotiate for our people, Overseer, Sarah said. We recover them. Always. The only question is how many of the captors survive the process. Kreeth stared at them for a long moment. Then, he made his grinding laugh again. But it sounded different now. Less certain. You have no fleet, no weapons, no allies. What can two humans do against the Vorax Dominion? Admiral Webb picked up the data chip and placed it in Kreeth's massive claw. Watch the records, Overseer. Learn what we are capable of. And then, ask yourself a question. What question? Webb's smile faded. His eyes grew cold. Ask yourself if you want to spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Ask yourself if you want your children to grow up afraid of shadows. Ask yourself if any colony, any resource, any prize is worth being hunted by a species that never, ever stops. He turned toward the door. Sarah followed. You have our people, Webb said without looking back. We want them returned. All of them. Unharmed. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact. And if we refuse? Kreith demanded. Sarah stopped at the door. She turned and looked at the massive Vorax one last time. Then, we begin. And we will not stop until every single human is free. It might take months. It might take years. It might take generations. But we will never stop. She walked out into the cold corridor. Behind her, Kreth stood alone in the darkness, holding a tiny data chip in his claw. For the first time in his long life, he felt something strange and unfamiliar. He did not know it yet, but it was the beginning of fear. The polite refusal had been given. Now the hunt would begin. The Vorax refused. 1 week after the meeting on Thessar Prime, Overseer Kreith sent a message to the human government. He called them weak. He called them fools. He said their threats were empty and their stories were lies. He said the colonists would remain prisoners forever. And if humans did not like it, they could try to stop him. He laughed in the message. He mocked them. He told them to go home and accept their loss like good little creatures. Admiral Webb read the message once. Then he deleted it. Begin, he said. Captain Sarah Chen received her orders 12 hours later. She was given command of a small flotilla. 5 ships, all of them fast and quiet. They were not warships. They carried no heavy weapons. They looked like simple patrol vessels. They were something else entirely. Sarah took her flotilla into Vorax space. She did not attack anyone. She did not fire a single shot. She simply appeared. Every time a Vorax military vessel traveled somewhere important, Sarah's ships were there, watching, following, waiting. The Vorax commanders would see them on their sensors, small dots that never came closer but never went away. At first, the Vorax laughed. What could 5 tiny human ships do against their mighty warships? They ignored the followers and went about their business. But the followers never left. Days passed. Then, weeks. Every time a Vorax captain looked at his sensors, the human ships were there. They did not threaten. They did not communicate. They just watched. And things started to go wrong. A Vorax supply convoy suffered engine failures. All 8 ships broke down at the same time. Engineers could not explain it. The engines simply stopped working. By the time they were repaired, the cargo had spoiled. A Vorax military base received incorrect navigation data. 3 patrol ships flew into an asteroid field. 2 of them were destroyed. The third limped home with heavy damage. A Vorax arms factory exploded. Investigation showed it was an accident. Faulty wiring, bad maintenance, nothing suspicious at all, except that humans had visited the planet 6 months earlier. Trade representatives, they said, just passing through. The Vorax investigated everything. They searched for proof of human involvement. They found nothing. Every incident looked like an accident. Bad luck. Random chance. But the accidents kept happening. Meanwhile, Admiral Webb opened a different kind of attack. Humans were new to the galaxy, but they had learned fast. They knew that the Vorax had enemies. Many species hated the Dominion, but were too afraid to act. They needed a reason. Webb gave them reasons. Anonymous packages began appearing in the mailboxes of important aliens. Inside were documents and recordings. Evidence of Vorax war crimes. Secret recordings of Vorax leaders laughing about conquered peoples. Financial records showing corruption and theft. The evidence spread through the galaxy like fire. Species that had traded with the Vorax began to reconsider. Old allies started asking uncomfortable questions. Business partners quietly ended their contracts. No one knew where the information came from. It just appeared. On Kepler 442b, the human colonists were held in prison camps, surrounded by Vorax guards. Escape was impossible. The walls were high. The guards were many. The prisoners had no weapons. But humans had something better. They had patience. They had observation. They watched the guards. They learned their routines. They found the weak points. They waited for the right moments. And one by one, they began to disappear. The first prisoner vanished on a dark night. The guards found his cell empty in the morning. No signs of escape. No broken walls or cut fences. He was simply gone. 3 days later, 2 more disappeared. Then 5. Then 12. The Vorax tripled their guards. They installed new sensors. They watched every corner of every camp, every second of every day. Prisoners still vanished. The Vorax could not understand it. Where were they going? How were they escaping? It was impossible. And yet, it kept happening. What the Vorax did not know was that humans had been building secret tunnels from the first day of their capture. Slowly. Carefully. Removing dirt, handful by handful, and hiding it in their clothes. Working in shifts so no guard ever saw the same people digging. It took months. But humans were patient. The tunnels led to the forests outside the camps. Other humans waited there. Quiet. Hidden. Ready to guide the escapees to safety. No one knew how many colonists had escaped. The Vorax tried to count, but their records kept getting confused. Numbers changed. Names disappeared from lists. It was maddening. Back on Thessar Prime, Overseer Kreth received reports every day. Each one was worse than the last. Supply lines disrupted. Trade partners abandoning them. Military vessels afraid to leave port. Mysterious accidents everywhere. Prisoners escaping from camps that should have been impossible to escape from. And always, the human ships. Watching. Following. Never attacking. Never threatening. Just waiting. Kreeth stopped sleeping well. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined human eyes watching him from the darkness. He started checking his food for poison. He doubled his personal guards. He trusted no one. His officers noticed the change. Their mighty overseer, conqueror of 60 worlds, was becoming paranoid, afraid. He jumped at shadows and screamed at servants for minor mistakes. The Vorax military began to whisper. What was happening? Why was their leader acting this way? They had faced armies before. They had fought wars against powerful enemies. But this was different. This was not a war. This was a hunt. Admiral Webb sent one message to Overseer Kreth during this time. It arrived on a normal day, mixed in with routine communications. It was short. We haven't begun negotiations yet. This is just us saying hello. Kreeth read the message 100 times. He tried to understand what it meant. The humans had been attacking them for months. They had cost the Dominion millions in lost resources. They had freed hundreds of prisoners. And they hadn't even started yet? For the first time, Kreth began to understand what he was facing. This was not a species that fought with ships and weapons. This was a species that fought with time itself. They did not need to defeat the Vorax in battle. They just needed to keep pushing, keep watching, keep hunting, forever, if necessary. Kreth looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, human ships were waiting. Human agents were planning their next move. Human prisoners were digging their next tunnel. And the humans were patient. So very, very patient. The hunt had only just begun. Kreth finally understood what Admiral Webb had tried to tell him in that first meeting. Humans were not dangerous because of what they could do today. They were dangerous because they would never, ever stop. And that was the most terrifying thing of all. 6 months had passed since the Council first dismissed humanity's request. 6 months of accidents and failures and vanishing prisoners. 6 months of sleepless nights and growing fear. Overseer Kreth looked like a different creature now. His shell had lost its shine. His movements were slow and jerky. Dark circles surrounded his compound eyes from lack of sleep. He had lost weight because he was afraid to eat anything he had not prepared himself. He stood before the Galactic Council once more, but this time he had not come to gloat. He had come to beg. The humans, he rasped. His voice cracked and broke. They are everywhere. They do not sleep. They do not stop. We have lost 40 vessels to accidents that cannot be explained. Our economy is collapsing. Our allies have abandoned us. Our own people are starting to question our leadership. NF. We. RIC. We of C. RIC. The council members stared at him in shock. This was not the proud overseer who had laughed at the humans 6 months ago. This was a broken creature, destroyed by something he could not understand. High Arbiter Zelros leaned forward in his seat. 40 vessels? How is this possible? We do not know. Kreth's voice rose to a shout. We have investigated everything. Every accident looks natural. Bad luck. Random chance. But it keeps happening. Over and over. He pulled out a data pad and threw it onto the floor. Our supply lines are ruined. Our secret bases have been exposed. Species that feared us now laugh at us. And the prisoners. Welf. He made a sound that might have been a sob. The prisoners keep escaping. We have guards everywhere. Sensors, walls, weapons. It does not matter. They just disappear. The council chamber was silent. No one laughed now. Zelros turned his golden eyes toward the human delegation seats. Captain Sarah Chen and Admiral Webb sat there calmly, watching the overseer's breakdown with polite interest. What have you done? Zelros demanded. Sarah Chen smiled. It was the same smile Admiral Webb had shown in this chamber 6 months ago. Patient, confident, terrifying. We have done nothing, High Arbiter, she said. We have simply been present, observing, waiting. This is war. No. Admiral Webb stood slowly. He walked toward the center of the chamber, where Kreth stood shaking. War is what happens when humans are angry. We are not angry. High Arbiter. We are patient. There is a difference. He turned to face the council. 12 ancient species looked down at him. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They thought they understood power. They were wrong. There is an old saying on Earth, Webb said. The wolf does not concern himself with the opinion of sheep. Your species have said similar things about humans. We are young. We are weak. We are sheep. He paused. But we are not wolves, High Arbiter. We are something much worse. We are persistence predators. He looked at each council member in turn. Do you know how our ancestors survived? They did not have claws. They did not have fangs. They did not have armor or venom or speed. They had one thing only: the ability to never stop. He walked slowly around the chamber. Our prey was faster than us. Our prey was stronger than us. But our prey could not run forever. And we could follow forever. We would chase them for hours, days, weeks. We would follow them across deserts and mountains and rivers. He stopped in front of Kreth. Eventually, our prey would collapse. Not because we defeated them, because they exhausted themselves trying to escape something that could not be escaped. No. Kreth made a sound like grinding metal. What do you want? Kreth metal. Sarah Chen stood and walked to join the Admiral. Our people. All of them. Unharmed. Every single human you took from Kepler. 2B. And if we refuse? Then we continue. Webb's voice was soft. For as long as it takes. Your children's children will grow up checking shadows for human eyes. Overseer. Your great-grandchildren will tell stories about the species that never stopped hunting. This is not a threat. This is simply what we are. The council chamber was completely silent. Zelros looked at the broken Vorax overseer. Then at the calm, smiling humans. He had lived for thousands of years. He had seen countless species come and go. He had thought he understood everything about power and survival. He had been wrong. For the first time in millennia, The High Arbiter felt something his species had forgotten existed. A cold feeling in his stomach. A tightness in his chest. An ancient instinct screaming at him to run and hide. Pray fear, Overseer Kreth, Zelros said slowly. What do you wish to do? Kreth's massive body seemed to collapse in on itself. All the pride and arrogance that had defined him for centuries was gone. He was just a tired, frightened creature who wanted the nightmare to end. Return them, he whispered. Return all of them. Give them their colony back. Give them whatever they want. Just make them stop. Sarah Chen nodded. And a formal apology to each family affected. Yes. Yes. Whatever you want. Just stop watching us. Please. Admiral Webb's expression did not change. We will stop when our people are safe. Not before. The colonists were returned within 1 week. All 3,000 of them. Some had been prisoners. Some had escaped and hidden in the forests. All of them came home. The Vorax sent formal apologies to every family. They surrendered all claims to Kepler 442b. They paid compensation for every person who had suffered, and they withdrew from that entire region of space, never to return. The human ships disappeared. The accidents stopped. The watching eyes vanished. The hunt was over, but the galaxy never forgot. High Arbiter Zelros personally ordered humanity's classification changed in the Council archives. They were no longer listed as a young species under provisional membership. Their new classification was simple. 2 words that would be remembered for thousands of years. Do not provoke. Captain Sarah Chen returned to Earth as a hero. Admiral Webb retired to a small house by the ocean. They had done what they set out to do. They had brought their people home. But more than that, they had taught the galaxy an important lesson. Humans were not the strongest species. They were not the fastest or the smartest. They did not have the best weapons or the biggest ships, but they had something that no other species could match. Patience that never ended. Memory that never forgot. And a simple promise that every human child learned before they could walk. We protect our own. No matter what, no matter how long, forever. The Galactic Council understood now. They would never forget. And for the rest of time, whenever an alien species thought about threatening humanity, they would remember the broken overseer standing in the council chamber, begging for mercy. They would remember the smiling humans who never raised their voices or made threats. And they would remember the simple truth that had changed the galaxy forever. Humans do not negotiate. They hunt politely, and they never, ever stop.